Alright, what's going on, guys? Armored Core 6 is just a little bit over 2 months away, and man does this game look incredible. We just made a video covering a lot of what happened at Summer Games Fest pertaining to Armored Core 6, and in that we discussed how Bandai Namco held a booth showcasing the game at Summer Games Fest for press and other invited guests. But the contents of that show have been a mystery, with no official information being given to the public, at least until today, because now the embargo on that information has lifted, and we have a lot to break down. So as we get into that today, I do want to remind you guys that I will be giving away a free copy of Armored Core 6 to one subscriber here on the channel once we hit our goal of 100k subs. And all you gotta do to be entered into that is number 1, be subscribed to the channel, number 2, leave a like on the video, and number 3, leave a comment in the comment section down below. But with all that, let's get into it. Today we get a look at about 4 minutes of new gameplay of Armored Core 6. Now I did try to find the best footage I could, however, there are definitely some quality issues here, but I can say this game looks good. The mission that was provided took the player through a mega structure in an old mining facility where one of the game's major corporations, RAD, had taken up shop. And one of the things that can be noticed immediately was how fluid the mech moves. You can definitely tell that one of the things they're stressing in this game is control. We can see a new ability for the mech in action called the Assault Boost, allowing them to fly through the air and land with pinpoint accuracy at this spot. We then get a shot of the mech entering combat for the first time in this mission, flying above this platform full of enemy robots and unleashing a volley of missiles from one of the shoulder weapon systems. But one thing that's really interesting here is that the missiles target multiple enemies at once. Now the people who got to see the demo did actually get to see the HUD in the gameplay, and VodiVidya provided a great example of what it looked like in his breakdown, and I do think it'll end up being pretty accurate, and from some of their impressions it seems like they were able to lock onto multiple enemies at once. But after firing off that volley of missiles, the AC then uses the Assault Boost to combo into a swipe with a plasma blade and finish off one of the enemies. And this is a primary component of Armored Core 6's combat, managing all the weapons and abilities at your disposal to chain together combos. And one thing that has been resounding from the people that got to see the gameplay demo is that the combat is Souls-like, and that's due to a new hard lock-on system. In Armored Core 6, you are able to stay locked on to one target at a time, in addition to having multiple lock-ons with different weapon systems. But there are other aspects that bring it closer to that Souls tradition, such as a new item that allows you to heal your AC during the mission, essentially Armored Core's version of an Estus flask. However, that's not shown in the public presentation. One other attack you may see several times is the AC literally throwing itself into enemies, and this is part of a new combat system called Impact, essentially posture like in Sekiro. After building up enough impact on an enemy, you'll be able to have a brief window of increased damage, and different weapons and attacks will build up various amounts of this impact. Another part of what makes Armored Core 6's combat more Souls-like than the past installments is the frequent usage of melee attacks, and this is where you start to juggle all these new combat systems. You can see in this fight with a mini-boss, the player began this fight by using ranged weapons from above to build up the enemy's stagger, and when the mini-boss gave the cue that it was staggered, they used their Assault Boost to get in quick, prolong the stagger with an impact kick, and then finish the boss off with a flurry of melee attacks. And it's the combination of all these new features that FromSoftware said is really going to elevate the combat in Armored Core 6, and it looks incredibly satisfying. There was one tiny little thing that happened right here that caught my eye. When the player hit this mini-boss with the finishing strike, there was almost a sense of time slowing down. And maybe I've just been playing too much Destiny 2, but if this is raw gameplay, with no visual effects to slow it down right at the end there, I almost wonder if there's some kind of stylistic finisher mechanic on enemies that are right about to die. But maybe I'm just overanalyzing. One other bit of the close range combat in AC6 is this newly improved energy shield that we can see in action here. And one thing that people are picking up on is that not only can you use all your weapon systems at once, even while having a shield deployed, but also that there's this large wave that happens on initial activation. And it looks to be a form of perfect block, although we haven't had any details about that yet. But popping back to the beginning of the gameplay sequence, one thing that especially longtime fans noticed very quickly was that these levels are huge, much bigger than the previous installments in the series. And one way FromSoftware clarified that they're taking more inspiration from the Souls series is incorporating little bits of exploration. And while exploration is not the point or the primary gameplay loop here, you will be rewarded for picking these levels apart. And this is also due to the various types of legs that you can equip your AC with. Not every AC is going to traverse the level the same. You may be flying like we see the player doing here, or you may be gliding across the surface in tank treads. The name of the game is customization, and your traversal is part of that. And your scan mode is going to be a major key in figuring out these levels. because they not only highlight enemies through walls, but also marks your objective and where you're supposed to be going. It was also said that the gates here act as checkpoints, although to what regard that checkpoint actually serves the player we weren't told specifically, but what was not shown to the public at this part was that the gate actually took a long time to hack open, and the player could be attacked by the enemies all throughout that time. I'm sure they'll have all different kinds of minor events like this, so this gate may have been exclusive to just this level. Another part of the level design that wasn't shown to us, the public, was that during this mini boss fight, they were actually fighting over another version of a checkpoint, a workshop. These are places throughout the level where you can access the customization garage and work on your mech before progressing. Now, I don't want to make the comparison with bonfires here because they do vastly different things, but a workshop is a place you're going to be able to catch a breather, which is one way Armored Core 6 is going to be a lot more forgiving than the other games. You'll respawn fairly close to where you died, and there will be resupply points so that you don't just lose when you run out of ammo. When showing off the new garage, we can definitely see that it is much cleaner than past installments. You can actively see comparisons between what you currently have equipped and the new part you're hovering over, with blue and red for comparison, and the bars that indicate your stats are definitely more beginner friendly than simply numbers, and I think that's a great change. Now, what's also a big change in making it more beginner friendly, as VodiVidia noticed, is that there are significantly less parts, like all the boosters being combined into one set, and the core now containing the aspects of radiators and things like that. You're still going to have that extreme level of customization, but I think the more simplistic design of the garage is going to work wonders for getting more people into playing this game. I know for me it was extremely frustrating playing Armored Core 5 for the first time and not knowing what all the numbers meant, but the reason that this segment of the garage was shown in the gameplay at the time it was is because according to the people that saw the internal showing, the player actually changed their build of their mech after dying to this mini boss for the first time. They changed from the heavier standard issue that we saw in the opening to this fast and agile reverse jointed mech that's zipping around the room here. And that little addition is going to be a massive quality of life improvement, among other things to make the game less frustrating, such as removing the debt system. But now we gotta talk about one of the biggest aspects of Armored Core 6, the boss fights. But we only get to see one in this clip, a boss known as the Smart Cleaner. This boss is primarily a melee focused boss, but does have a chimney on the top where it shoots out molten rock. Now, one of the things that was clarified about this boss by the people that saw the extended gameplay was that it had a ton of health, and the player was really only tickling it with its guns. That was until they tried shooting down the chimney on its top. We can't see here in the public footage that the player actually misses a few shots, with them just ricocheting off the edge. But in the extended footage, a bullet that went down the chimney did significantly more damage. But another way of tackling this boss was breaking down its posture and taking advantage of the additional damage while they're in that staggered state. Now, as far as I could tell, nobody actually clarified what the means of achieving that stagger were on a boss this big. But I do like the idea of having multiple avenues of tackling something with as big of a health pool as this. I can imagine FromSoftware is going to get extremely creative with these boss fights. And from what we can see in the gameplay trailer, it definitely looks like they're going to. I also want to admire one little section of this boss fight that players who are going to be new to Armored Core might not fully understand, and you can see it happen right here, where the player zips under the boss's right arm and comes backward at the same time to avoid getting hit. It not only looks incredibly smooth, but it amplifies the point that this is a game that takes place in all three dimensions. I know that might be kind of obvious, but you don't fully realize it until you start playing and realize just how cool it is. But that movement can be attributed to a new feature, which is pretty controversial among longtime fans, and it's called Quick Turn. While hard locked onto a target, your AC can turn very quickly to face the target, without you having to directly aim with your right analog stick. Now, that type of design is fairly fundamental in the Souls games, but it hasn't been around in Armored Core. The past games only relied on a soft lock-on system, while you still had to control where your AC was looking during fights. So is this going to make it easier to pilot your AC? Yes, definitely, but personally I think the fluidity that it adds is going to bring so much to the table that it'll ultimately be a fantastic change. But that brings us to the end of the demo gameplay that was provided to the public, and personally I gotta say it looks amazing. I am thoroughly impressed, but overall I'm just glad we finally have some raw gameplay. Even if they're not gonna release a public demo that's actually playable, this segment did a fantastic job at showing just how the game is going to feel. But it also communicated what they meant by saying that they took the things they learned from the Souls games and translated them into the new Armored Core, and I think that is gonna be what sells people the most on this game. But anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here. I'll be keeping y'all up to date on literally everything that happens as we get closer to Armored Core, and with all that, I will catch you in the next one.